Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you're at in the world. Welcome to yet another exciting episode of Inviting the Phenomena. I'm Thomas Fessler, your host, and we've got a great conversation to talk about ETs, CE-5, disclosure, consciousness, and a whole bunch of beautiful things with one of our guests, Jenny. Not playing the music today. It's one of those days of just trying to get through on to the next day. And before we kind of kick in, I want to go ahead and say hi to everybody. Well, we've got a couple people in the chat only at this point. Want to say hi to Cosmic Jerry and hi to Julie Welchel. Well, Julie, I think you're actually backstage. Julie, welcome. How you doing?
I am backstage, and I can't do chat and this at the same time.
Oh, that's okay. We love you anyway. I'm just so glad I can get your picture in here, and with your cigarette smoking, we can share that with all of our audience and get them to puff up with you as well. I've heard people say before, wow, Julie's smoking. I need to smoke too. You're just missing a beer.
Bad for you. Stop.
You're just missing a beer, girl, to go with that heat and the cigarette.
Yeah, I don't really drink the beer too much.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But, did you know that there's a screen up on my thing? I can't see your face for a
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
my thank you. There you go. Now you can see us. That was me going and giving you a bit more color because you were a bit more.
Thank you.
Yeah. I do what I can do to bring out the best of you and then the wonderful video quality we have courtesy of Zoom live streaming, giving us the ability to bring in Julie. And let's see who else is here in the chat. We've got, let's see. We got Greg O'Brien. Welcome, Greg. Glad to see you here. Oh my. Ack.
Hi, Greg.
Ack. 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 Yes, I'm sure he understands that. Yes, girl. He welcomes you as well. Beverly Holmes. Great that you're here as well. The ever-presence, the man who has all of the orbs flying around his place that some people don't want to believe of. Rican Havoc. Welcome, Rican. Hopefully you could share some of those with some of the people we've got in the audience because we'd all love to have some of those. Give you a bit less. And, of course, Cosmic Jerry. Welcome, Jerry. It's great to have you here. And, hey, look at this. Jay Breezy's even shown up in the show. And, hey, health is holding up there, Jay Breezy. Thanks for all your help in the past and the positive vibes and everything along those lines. And without any further ado, let me bring out Jenny, pop her around, give her the top spot. Welcome, Jenny. Great to have you here.
Well, it's good to be here.
Yeah.
It's really great.
It's been a crazy week. I mean, you're involved in so many different things from dowsing and consciousness and CE-5 and dealing with UFOs and disclosure and everything. Do you want to go ahead and tell us something about yourself here?
Well, let's see, where do I start? I started my interest in UFOs when I was a child. I mean, I saw a documentary at age 9. I saw a UFO the next day, kind of freaked my parents out.
Oh, wow.
Hi, Lynda. And I continued to develop an interest in the early mid-90s. I was active with MUFON, and through MUFON, through one of the investigations I did, through Kenny Young, who was an investigator years and years ago, I was introduced to CE-5. And I continued the interest in CE-5, doing experiments whenever I could. My experience grew, and I learned various. I became interested in communication and finding out more. And they started talking about disclosure, and I thought, I don't think they're going to tell us anything, and I'm not sure that they know that much. So I want to find a way to do it. So that's kind of how my journey started with the scrying book, and it was almost a decade-long journey to get to that. So I'm active with that. I'm active in various consciousness groups, a meditation group. Just started down in my neighborhood, which is amazing because this is like 5,000 people we're talking about. I'm in Nova Scotia, and I'm in a very rather remote rural area here. And I wrote up I wrote up my experiences. I taught a couple classes. I taught some classes. I taught individuals how to do this. And as I taught them, I refined the technique. Oh,
We've got ack in the chat. So
oh, okay.
I just had a, well, he's from Mars. So I had a, well, you know, communicate back. Sorry.
Gotcha. Well, and
Yeah, you have to go everyone.
Yeah. And as I taught it, I was able to refine it more, make it more dependable. And finally, I've gotten to the point, you know, and then I said, I got to write this up because it's going to benefit people. So I wrote up, and it was a monster manuscript. We divided it into 2 books. My husband's a professional writer, so he taught me how to do that professional publishing and writing, and he does the editing. It's a good thing he does the editing. And that's how the art of scrying and dowsing came about. And the following book, The Art of Channeling, is next year. But all that came about because of the CE-5 work that I did. That was the trigger, so to speak, for all this work.
Interesting. So okay, so was it the sighting that you had that initially started your interest in UFOs?
Yes.
Or
well, it was actually the documentary, because at that age, I can remember parts of that documentary. This would have been in the 1970s. This is a long time ago. Okay. I remember parts of that documentary that made such an impression on me when I was just at in grade school. And the interest never left since that time. You know, I haven't been like, getting out there and being on the front line and everything like that, where everybody can see me, but I've been there. I remember when Black Vault started as a website.
Yeah. Now, one thing I'm not sure if you knew about or not, but actually I know you met. Well, we'll stay on this for a second before I get to that point. So you mentioned earlier when having a conversation that when you first saw one of your UFOs, and your mom said to come in and don't see it, did other people come out and see it along with you?
We were at a friend's house, and I can't remember who exactly, but Dad came out, and he wasn't sure what was going on, so he just dragged us inside. And that was the end of it, because he wasn't going to let us. They weren't going to let us anywhere near that door. They had us in the middle of the house. They were scared, and that pretty much was the end of that encounter.
Well, if you had some kids saying something, that's one thing. But if you have the parents pulling the kids into the center of the house, that actually says a heck of a lot more, to where it sounds like maybe your dad did see something.
Yeah, he never said anything, and he hasn't said anything since then. So I don't know. I don't even know if he remembers it anymore. But I mean, it was a very distinct, a very strong memory for me.
Yeah.
And it was like the realization, a child's realization that, oh my gosh, this is real. This is real. I mean, I had validation on the documentary the next day.
Oh, wow. So you saw it's right before the documentary then, and then you see this stuff, and then you've got the documentary on TV. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was like, no, actually the documentary was first.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I understood what it was. I learned what it was.
Yeah.
And then I saw one. I spotted one. I was just, it's right there. It's right there. They're real. Yeah. They're here.
Yeah. I hear you.
Were you in Indiana?
I'm sorry?
Were you in Indiana?
Yes, I was in Indiana.
Were you in Indiana?
Yes.
Indianapolis. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, nice. So it just kind of, brought you along to that particular point where you could actually see it and then be a part of it to a degree. And were there any more sightings as a kid, or is it just from that point that you saw it and then you kind of, as you got older, that you gravitate towards MUFON? Because one thing I can say about MUFON, not sure if you know, but actually there was an initial organization about UFOs that was started by a woman and run by a woman. But then one of the guys in it went and split off from it and started his own organization, which was MUFON.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. MUFON was many, many years later. I was in my mid-20s. I was living in the Mid-Coast area of near Maryland. And I heard about a meeting, and so I had the interest, so I just went to the meeting. I was trained as an investigator by Bruce Maccabee, Dr. Maccabee.
Oh, wow.
And I did a lot of I focused mostly on cryptozoology because I was out in the woods. A Bigfoot expedition is a great party to go to. I had so much fun with that. We got our tents and we were out tramping in the woods.
Did you guys see anything when you were out there looking, or was it primarily just more of a group thing and trying to find different signs for it?
Well, we didn't see any. The first one was in the first big expedition was in Ohio, up in the northern, and we didn't see a whole lot. There were people who had. We talked to witnesses, and then I had the investigation in southern Ohio near Shawnee National Forest, and that was with Kenny Young. And he had a couple of friends. It was the first time I met Kenny. And at that time, Kenny was a fairly prominent investigator in the Midwest. And so he had a couple of friends. It was the first experience with night vision. So we went out, we met in late afternoon, and then we went out into the woods at nighttime. And we got to the lake. It was a very severe drought in Ohio at that time. We got to a lake, and we were looking for tracks in the mud. And as we walked back, we were getting kind of goofy at this point because we'd been out for several hours and get tired. Kenny whacked on a tree with a stick, and then we heard something howl, and we had stones been thrown at us. So we don't know. We couldn't see what was throwing the stones at us. At that point, we kind of hurried back to the cars and got in. We did try to find them. We're using the night vision and everything. We couldn't find anything. But and then we went back to camp and then did the CE-5, which was like the first time I had any experience with it. This was in 1995, so maybe he heard of Gerswark. I'm not sure where he got the information from. And we worked for about an hour just trying to contact, and then we felt something kind of weird. And then we started hearing fighter jets, and there were no bases. There were no bases anywhere near there. About 3 or 4 fighter jets buzzed the area for a while. So we stopped. We got kind of scared after that. So we stopped until about midnight, and then we started up again. We started seeing like the light show and all kinds of stuff up there, which was, and Kenny had told me afterwards that he'd never seen anything like that. He went down, I don't know if it was in Kentucky or if it was like in one of the Carolinas. He went down to a group there, and he said it wasn't anything like what we experienced. So we had a very interesting experience. So CE-5 was like, that first experience was just extraordinary for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime that you go through CE-5 and you get a result, whether it's a result from a light show, or it's something that comes in through connection on if you want to call it consciousness level, it's definitely something amazing. Do you want to take us through the steps that you went through when you were doing your CE-5?
Oh man, we're talking like 2000. This is 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Or it was earlier than that. Actually, because he died in 2001. So 1995. Okay, this is around 1995. We just sat. We had these chairs, right? Because we're in the campground. We just sat there and just reached out mentally. And he's like, "Let's go up." And we were thinking about trying to attract a vehicle down to us. It wasn't really anything very complicated, but we kept at it, and we were both very focused. We were both working really, really solidly together. It was kind of an interesting experience because it wasn't just like what was coming down. It was also what was happening between us. And and that was pretty much what we did. But after, the results were just, wow. We didn't have the kind of camera equipment. We couldn't take any pictures of it. And that's always the hardest part I find of the CE-5 when you're doing a sky watch. It's like you want to be able to take pictures of it. The pictures never come out because the camera equipment's just very difficult to work with.
So it's almost like you need to get set up with your cameras, with your infrared scopes and different things to record stuff ahead of time, and just let the feed roll as you're going through it. Because as you know, I mean, even for Jules and me, both of you, all of us, we kind of deal with on a consciousness level. When you're in that state of mind and everything, it's difficult sometimes to be able to stay within what you're doing without dropping it and locking out. But luckily I went through years of physical therapy, and I was able to go ahead and teach myself how to maintain myself out of body while still being able to communicate back with the physical therapist.
Oh, wow. Wow.
It took a while.
That's hard.
Yeah, it is.
That's a big skill.
Yeah, it is.
After those experiences, those initial experiences, I wanted more. I wasn't satisfied.
I'm sure you did.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, that's spectacular. I said that's spectacular. It probably, made you want to have something happen every day.
I wanted to interact. My focus was, okay, I see you up there. I want to talk to you. I want to communicate.
Yeah. We've got a question from you for you from the audience here from Beverly Holmes. She asked, has Jenny noticed any difference in the closeness of encounters when you don't use cameras versus when you do?
I find that we do. I tend to do better without the equipment. I like it best just throw everything back and just be out there, just me and whoever else is out there, and we're going to commune. I figured out a way to communicate. I've worked out a rudimentary communication system, and that's some of what I do. But I mean, sometimes it's just best to throw everything down and just go outside and be there, or just meditate in a chair if the bugs are too bad. Understand, we have bugs, lots and lots. We don't have poisonous snakes. We don't have the water moccasins. We don't have the spiders.
We don't have the scorpions or spiders or snakes like they have down in Australia. But
we've got black flies.
Oh, and they take a chunk out of your skin when they bite, don't they?
Everything takes a chunk out of your skin when it bites around here. Lots of those kind of things. So, part of my drive for the communication was also because if you've ever done sky watching in Nova Scotia, you're meditating,
Yeah. You almost need like a screened in. Yeah, but you could have screened in, but even looking through the screen, it might screw with your ability to actually see the stars. Right.
It's difficult. Now I've done it in the car. I just sit in the car, but it gets kind of sticky after a while and everything. So another thing that I found is a dome tent, and you just take the rain cover off, and there's a screen there, and that works pretty good. That works nice. That works nicely. But when you focus on the communication part of it, it's fun to go out there and see the light show and everything. But I like getting into technology and finding out, how do you do this? Where you come from? What's it like where you're at? Things like that. I like to. I'm curious about them. And that's kind of been my focus has kind of gone from being, in the Skywatch to being more of like, I want to get to know you a little bit better. I want to see what it looks like where you're at. I want to know how you do things. How can this technology help us? How do I find out about this technology? And that's what I have been working on.
Tell you?
I'm sorry?
Do they tell you? I said, do they tell you?
Yes, I found out quite a bit. Yes, I found out quite a bit of information. And I don't do it.
Share it?
There goes Mars again.
Yeah. But I actually got a reply this time, so.
It just threw me off for a second.
I'm sorry about that. We just like to have fun with the audience and everybody else. Sorry if I'm putting up something that's getting to the point.
Okay. I haven't done this in a while.
We have a bunch of lovely misfits.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of lovely misfits in our wrench army and in the chat room.
If you notice, everybody within the chat has a wrench, because we like to make everybody a mod, make everybody on the same level where they can share links, collaborate and everything. gives me less things I have to worry
No
about
wrench
because they can do an El Kabong on someone else and get past it and stuff. Plus, it actually helps me identify new people to the chat, and I can give them a wrench and ask them to, hey, subscribe.
Okay, so let's see here. The Skywatch kind of led to increase in, like, talking about I want to find out things about you. So that's what I started working on. And it led to some really interesting, I got to tell you what happened. This one experience that I had, and this was just a couple years ago. I was one with the Nova Scotia Sea SETI, and before we had the COVID, it was about 2 years ago. And we were working on the meditation and everything for the CE-5. And I wanted to talk to somebody. I really did. I was really, really just, please talk to me. Come on. And I took a picture. I was out mowing the lawn. I took a picture, and I took a picture of a disc. I didn't see it with my eyes, but it showed up on my camera. And that night, oh my gosh, it was insane.
You still have the picture?
Somewhere.
Yeah.
I can dig it up and send it.
But if you can dig and send it to us and stuff, we can bring it up at another time. That'll be phenomenal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was let's see, that night. Yeah, that night. Well, I was getting ready to go to bed, and understand, I go to bed with the chickens. So in Nova Scotia, it's still light when I go to bed. And as I was going into the bedroom, I started hearing this horrible shrieking sound. And it was just, it was really loud. It just made my whole head buzz. And it was very unpleasant. So I go and I lay down. And then all of a sudden I felt like all my chakras, like it was opening, like somebody was opening the channel.
Oh, wow.
It's the same experience I have when I'm doing trance channeling. It's just a really deep opening. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was kind of painful, actually. Especially in the chest area, because when I open it, I do it kind of slowly and ease into it and everything. This wasn't easing anything. It was just like, rip it open.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've had stuff like that before where I get this vibration that passes over my body, this energy that it feels. And usually when I'm dealing with past humans, it's kind of attainable and everything else. But when I got connected from this collective consciousness that has its own intelligence beyond the own, it was like taking something from a 9-volt battery and plugging me into 220. Was just like, holy, what the heck is this? And when stuff like that hits you, you just have to drop down and say, hello? Is there anybody there?
Yeah, it was. And so I went and laid down because I was like getting kind of, I didn't feel very good, right? So I lay down and it did go away. And then I heard a voice say, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Jen? I'm like, yeah, I can hear you. It was really, really loud. So I heard like these people talking in a foreign language. Okay. It wasn't English, and there was about 4 of them in there talking in a foreign language. And they said, we started talking, they started asking me some questions. I don't remember exactly what it was. It's weird. The memory doesn't really work very well. I don't remember exact content of the conversation. I couldn't see anything. There was no visuals at all. I was laying there. I was not in an altered state. I was wide awake. I hadn't been smoking doobie-doobie-doo.
I always joke around with this, but it's kind of true that Lynda Thompson, bless her heart, she got out of the hospital, or hopefully she's out of there by now and she's recovering. She has the appearance of Velma, but as an older person. Same hairdo, same glasses, same smile and everything. And Jules here we have, that's Daphne.
Yeah.
That would make me probably Shaggy with,
Shaggy.
Well, yeah.
Well, he's got the beard thing.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, that's Shaggy.
Oh, we got the whole
like
So I was just it was the weirdest conversation, and I was like, guys, and it was hurting. So I said, guys, this isn't comfortable. I'm hurting. Please do something. And they said, oh, we're sorry. We'll turn it down. And then it got comfortable after that. So they kind of talked. There was one man and a couple of women. And I mean, they sounded, huh? I'm sorry?
I asked my dog if she wanted to be Scooby, trying to get in the picture. Her name's right. Lenore.
So I later learned that they were testing out some sort of technology, and the on me, and it happened like one or two times, but I haven't heard, like, in the past year. They haven't done anything with it. They said they were testing out some kind of telepathic enhancer, and I did an astral projection there, and I saw it, and it was like this dome-like thing. Okay. And you remember those balls that used to bounce around, those giggle balls that would just sort of like randomly bounce around? There was something
balls,
like that.
Yeah.
Well, it was like it had 3 or 4 knobs on it, and it was just bouncing in this dome thing on the stand.
Oh my God, they're playing lotto.
It must have been. I don't know.
I've seen it before where they've got the big, huge dome thing. The balls are bouncing around in it. And hey, get the right combination, you win a prize.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. So do you have any memory of being on board a ship?
Oh, yeah.
Did you see these dome things? Like these great big dome things?
No, I did not.
They're like,
Yeah.
they have a control panel, and then back there's like a set of these weird silver colored things.
Yeah.
And then next to this was a control panel, and then over on the left hand side was this stand with that little thing buzzing around in there, and that was supposedly the tool that they were using.
Right.
It made no sense to me. There's nothing there that I would ever associate with communication in any way.
Right. But you got to remember, the communication, everything they have is from up in here. So when they're talking and they're communicating back and forth, they're not moving their mouth. They're sending words, emotion, if you want to call it 3D holographic images of stuff that they want you to see and be a part of. Well, it's either to distract you or so they can finish doing whatever those 3 little guys are doing up in that spacecraft.
Yeah. Well, these weren't grays. These were humans.
Oh wow, you actually got
These were human beings.
Yeah.
The language, I suspect.
Were they the ones who were like the tall blondes?
Yes, but they speak a language. It's like the guy that was in charge of it said he was a human being. I mean, he didn't say he was a hybrid or anything else like that. He said genetically he was the same as us, but they were different. They're taller.
Were they beautiful?
Oh,
were they beautiful people?
Yes, they were. He was elderly.
Go ahead, Julie. Talk about
I saw some human. I saw some human people up in a bubble ship when I was a kid in Indiana. That there were 4 of them, 2 men, 2 women, and all of them were blondes except for one woman who was like Asian or Native American or something, Indian, I'm not sure what, but darker skin and hair and everything. But they were just gorgeous people, and they waved out their little window, and yeah, it was really something. It was a clear, but like a soap bubble, but huge in the sky with all the swirly colors, and then a rectangle of light window opened up, and then they were inside it like they were standing at a window. And they waved at me, and I waved at them. It was interesting.
Wow. I didn't see.
I've never been on the ship, at least above.
This guy said that he had been on Earth, but it was he said the leader of Russia was Mikhail Gorbachev. So I was able to identify the time period because of that. And he thought that's where I was. He thought I was Russian, but he said he was interested in the origin of human beings, because apparently there's some question about that. Even beyond our ancient astronaut sort of thing. Now, keep in mind, this is channeling, like free channeling. So this isn't, I haven't had a chance to do much validation with it. I do cross-session validation, it's one of my techniques to try and test to see if I'm channeling something from inside me or if I'm actually channeling an entity. I use sort of like a multi-session with a blind target in order to try to see if I'm coming up with the same data every time. And I use and I haven't had a chance to validate all the information. I have validated the existence of this individual. I have identified, I have validated the climate and the appearance of the planet. But that's as far as I've gotten with it. The planet is called luminous, and it's a very wet climate. They have total cloud cover. They don't see the sun there. Rainy. But anyway.
Yeah. It sounds like when you're channeling, you're getting a bunch of really good information, and it's something you just have to really open your mind to and just let the words flow. But as I've learned, and maybe you have as well, the first time I channeled and I had connected to, I'd done a Renegade CE-5. I'm calling him in to, let's move this dang disclosure thing forward. The government isn't giving us what we need, so they need let's get a live streaming moment here. Let's bring them in on, have the craft come across, have it land. Let's, stream it on YouTube, stream it wherever, and let's just really let them have the disclosure that they want to have. Mm-hmm. And after going out and doing a connection event that I was doing, and I think what the part was that actually worked the best was I was putting my hand down over the water main and the connection to the entire municipal water system. So I was able to leverage into that and just broadcast up. I had the most phenomenal, I'm not sure what you call it. It was a linkage where initially it was just all these images, one after the other and the other, but it wasn't an image. It was like a real memory of a video kind of that was there, but it was in full 3-dimensional, and the whole thing that was going on was one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other, after all these words just flying, and it was way too fast. And I was like, slow down, stupid human.
the images that you're perceiving when you have telepathy, I have found through studying this whole communication phenomenon, with the phenomenon, the images are the most accurate component of telepathy. They transmit things. They tend to transmit things in images and in symbols. That's
an
sort
emotion.
An emotion, yes, always. With the it's a complex emotional sequence. I can't even really describe it so much as what you feel, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, of course.
And
I mean, for me, it comes in when I'm trying to reach back, I'm going ahead and I'm sending one word at a time because I'm not as fast as they are, but that with both of memory, where it's a visualized memory that I have of an event and the emotion that goes along with it. Come here now, or come here, friend. I always have to repeat things 3 times, not sure exactly well, but it's just something that I've learned from dealing with the stuff that I have. You repeat it 3 times and then just let it go.
If you can project an image, even the image is
bingo. And that's what the memory is.
That's what they use between each other. That's how they're used to communicating. So the images are the best way, seem to be the best way to do it.
That's exactly how you talk to critters. That's how you communicate with animals.
Right.
It's the same way. It's very effective across, species.
Yeah.
I think there's a universal way of communicating, and that's telepathy with the images, occasionally
and the
emotions. I think that's pretty much universal because there are at least 2 species of aliens that I've had contact with seem to do this the same way. And if you think about it, when you're going from one star system to another, you can't send radio waves through space. You can't do anything through space. The distances are too big. You have to go through spirit, the spirit
Consciousness,
world that exists, through
Yep.
consciousness. So the only way
I call it a quantum connected consciousness, is because you can get so far in everything, and it just comes and it's just instant.
I like that term. I call it the nexus because it's like the intersection of everything, right? It's the intersection, everything is there. And everything has to go through there. So in order to communicate with your crew, if you're on a mission to another planet, you have to communicate with telepathy. So you have to learn that as a species.
Mm-hmm.
And if this species, if these people who say that they're human can do this, then we should be able to too.
Yeah, we should be able to. Yeah, well, then we can. And if that's what I guess, are you talking between humans, or are you talking between us and them? Yeah, we can.
We can do it with everything.
But both people maybe have to be skilled. But I know when one person is skilled and the other person isn't quite as skilled, and you can play cards, it really comes in handy.
Well, I've got a systematic way of doing it. It's like, I start out very simple, just sitting with pen and paper, and I focus. You don't know what the question is. Like you draw a question from a gram bag, and you don't look at it, and then you try to communicate, and you draw pictures. And what you find is that about 60% of the material, when you do that, about 60% of it's accurate, but it doesn't happen like on a conscious level with the other human being. I think it's because we're just not we haven't developed that yet. We haven't really focused on that because we don't realize that as a technological society that's where the good stuff is. That's where we learn to fly.
Yeah. Well,
I did just see an article about how your brains mesh together in they sync together when you're with each other. People are just now figuring that out.
Yeah.
I thought they already did this.
Yeah, that's one thing that the ETs they have the ability from long distances and everything to be able to channel and send the stuff out. But the thing is, like caller ID we get on a phone, if you're good enough and if they call into you once, you can always look at that number and call back.
Yeah.
And it's like an intercom. You're going to drop in whether they're not in the right position or whatever, and whether they like it or not, you're talking to them.
Yeah, yeah. It just takes a bit of focus. I mean, I've since I developed, I explained earlier, I developed clairaudience as an adult. It wasn't something that I was born with. I was not born with really strong psychic abilities or mediumship abilities. I intentionally developed it as an adult. And I worked very hard. It took a long time.
Now, what's the difference between clairaudience and clairvoyance?
Okay, clairaudience is like you can hear what a spirit is saying. It's a voice that's not going to be audible to others, but it's usually the information. You'll get real information that you can validate. It's always you should always validate your information. That means try to get some sort of information that has a basis in physical reality, and then check into it to see if that information is accurate. You always want to focus on making sure that what you hear is accurate. So clairaudience I developed by using a PSB-7 ghost box. I tried to contact the spirit of Dr. John Dee, who is a 16th century astrologer for Queen Elizabeth II. And we were successful in doing that. And then I decided I have to communicate faster. We were using a board. Donald and I were using a board, and I said, I got to communicate faster than this. This is like too slow. I want information. I want to know things. I want to ask questions, and I want answers.
Wow.
So I got the ghost box, and I figured out how to use it. And then after about 3 months, 4 months, I found that I didn't need the ghost box anymore. That I was hearing the answers, and it wasn't, even before the ghost box was turned on. So
now, do you hear this stuff and repeat it as you're hearing it, or how do you deal with it?
It depends. Like sometimes, sometimes you'll hear a reflection of your own emotional, like your own aura.
Right.
Sometimes your emotions and everything will reflect back, and you will hear that as clairaudience sometimes. There's a difference, and it took me a long time to figure out that, okay, this is what's coming from me. This is what's coming from outside. And it's just more, I have to look at like you remember you were saying the vibration. It's looking at the vibration that you feel when you hear it. That has a lot to do with knowing whether or not that's coming from you or coming from the outside. But I always try to seek out a way to validate with physical information if I can. The information that I get that keeps me grounded, that keeps me in reality. Clairvoyance is clear seeing. It means that you can visually see something or sense something in terms of pictures. Okay, it starts out in the head in terms of pictures, in terms of visual, and as you work with it, then you will start to, you can like use a crystal ball or a basin of water, and you can sometimes see it in the water, see glimpses, little flashes of it. It doesn't come like a movie. Okay, we expect it to look like a movie. It doesn't do that. It's more like flashes and insights, those really fast, subtle flashes.
Yeah.
That's what you pay attention to. That's what you got to pay the most attention to.
Yeah.
Because when it comes from the deeper, the conscious mind is always trying to interfere, trying to interpret everything.
But you got to quiet it down and let it go down. And after you do it enough times, you get used to which voices are coming from you or the different points to a degree. But yeah, the visualization part, I understand. But depending on the level of connection that I get to the source energy that I bring in for the visualization, it can be as much as almost like a 3D holographic image that's like, if you want to call it, with a really slow redraw where the white energy comes in and flows across it, or it can be as much as a full screen video event where I'm going through it in depth and detail, and it's just like you're there.
Yeah. Now that's an astral projection.
Yeah.
Clairvoyance and astral projection. Astral projection is sort of like on the more, there's a variation in the intensity of experience. Okay. So clairvoyance, for somebody like me who doesn't have any innate ability, I would start them out with that feeling.
Right.
Related to visual, and then gradually build on the intensity to astral projection. So we have a continuum. It's not just like one thing and not one thing. It's a continuum of things. Same thing with clairaudience. There's a continuum that now a lot of people are born with it. Like if you're born with it, this is different. When you're born with it, then you have to focus on validation and trying to get, what you're hearing, see if you can get something that is related to a physical world event or people, something that you can grab onto and say, I heard something that is not here, that's distant, and it was true.
Yep, I hear you. I've seen the world end way too many times in different ways that I understand that completely.
Yeah, it's easy to get lost. It's really easy to get lost in a fantasy with this stuff. You know, you can just go off into La La Land, literally.
Yeah. I've only gotten lost once as a kid, and I learned never to ever get lost again. Getting back was difficult, and it felt like it took forever. Although I still look young at 53, so I can't complain.
Oh, yeah. So
Clairaudience.
But with the clairaudience, I started out with the ghost box, and the important thing when you're doing that is to focus, and the spirit board too, like the community. It's just like has letters on it, and you use a pendulum, and it stops at the letters.
Is that kind of like what do you call it? Ouija board, kind of, but different?
Yeah, but if you're working by yourself, you can't use the thing that you use with the fingers, because you got to record what you're doing, and you're supposed to use that with two people. It's better if you just cover it up with a cloth, use a pendulum, stick a pin in, and then see where the pin lies on the letters, and then you have kind of an anagram that you have to put together. That's usually how it works out. And that's a good way to start. It's very slow. You only get one word answers, and it's, I like complex. I like to know some information,
Yeah. And it sounds like when you get information, you want information and you want it now.
Uh-oh.
That's okay. We lost Jules. She might be back. That shows. I saw her kind of talking to someone, maybe. So maybe something got in the way of her stuff. But we'll keep on going. That's all right. Eventually she'll pop back in, I hope.
But I like to use like with that kind of thing. You need to focus on the spirit that you want to contact, or the ET. You can use this with ETs. They can do this. Any being, with powerful telepathic abilities, especially, they're really good. They're able to handle doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Because they guide your subconscious. I mean, it's a subconscious, guiding your hand and everything else like that. You look for something subtle, and you just stick your pins in. Greg says, I want to astral project so bad.
Yeah, we'll get there. There's some stuff he can go ahead and try. He hasn't gone down that area, but I know there's some stuff from the Monroe Institute that actually can go ahead and teach you and give you some different skills for actually going and getting to that point. I know I used the Silva method when I was 8, and I started off and had they used to call it Silva mind control back then. I like that better than Silva method. But yeah, it was a really powerful stuff. And I think I was the only person in the audience in the room of like 30 something people. And I was like barely 8 years old. If I was 8 years old at that point, going through all this, and, everyone else is just laying there seeing a black scene. And there I am lifting out of body, going up, going through that door into the stuff beyond it. Yeah.
Early on in my consciousness explorations, I did try some of Monroe's Institute's stuff. There was a forum. Oops, better keep my camera straight.
No worries.
There was a forum years and years ago called Astral Pulse, and I was part of that group there. And they had a guy there that was teaching by the name of Frank Keppel. And he had kind of a method, and I also tried his method. And I like Keppel's method better than I like Monroe's, because it was more subtle. It involved doing subtle things. I developed the ability somewhat, but what happens with me when I'm astral projecting, it's almost like I'm looking through this, like it looks like this. I can see things, and I'm there, but I just have this like weird tunnel vision.
Yeah, for me, it's almost like, depending on how far I'm going and what I'm doing, and I'm not out of body, but I'm more of in a remote viewing kind of I'm not leaving the body too much. It almost looks like I'm looking through a diving mask, meaning I've got this black kind of an area that's kind of around the eyes. And beyond that, I'm seeing everything else, whatever I'm going to deal with. But just depending on the session, what I'm dealing with, sometimes it can be almost looking like a magazine picture that's been cut apart into pieces and kind of put together. Not everything is completely put back together the way it should, and it's kind of fuzzy. Mm-hmm. From that up to a point of looking like full motion black and white video.
I was initially, it was in black and white for me, but I've since then started to see things in color. Now the colors are actually very vivid.
Yeah. So you're almost going to an out of body kind of a thing now from what you were doing before, and just your visualization.
But that's all work. I mean, I wasn't, that's stuff that I've had to work very, very hard on. And anyway, the book on scrying, now see between the scrying and the channeling book, I make a progression. I use a different progression to that. I go into trance channeling, which is going to lead to that kind of experience. But I start out very how can I say, very low key. You're sitting at a table with a pencil and paper to start out with, and you're not in an altered state until you get proficient with that. I have several different techniques that you go through, and what it does is that we start out with a low intensity experience, because a lot of people get frightened, and fear can be a problematic factor, especially when you're dealing with ETs. Because I mean, let's face it, some of them they're not as predictable to us as another human being. You know, they don't always react the way that we expect them to. Like, I'll give you an example. I'm going on a tangent again.
Go right on.
We would expect that if they're coming to Earth, that they would land, stop, and interact with a number of people. But they don't do that. That's big. And a lot of people have have some trouble with that. That's one way that they're not predictable. Because if we were a human being, if we're going to somebody's house, if we're going to visit somebody, we're going to stop, say hi, we're going to interact with them. That's because that's how we interact socially. They don't do that.
Because they're not human, and that's the one thing, is we can't take human constructs and things of how we think about stuff and apply it to them, because they're so different. Right.
So to get over that fear factor, and I mean, like a CE-5 experience, even if you read some of what is that book, Paths to Contact? Have you ever read that book?
No, I haven't. What is it called again?
It's called Paths to Contact. It was co-authored by Joseph Burke, and he worked with Dr. Greer. I like Joseph Burke. We interact on Facebook, and he talks about how some people had kind of a fear reaction the first time that they saw results.
It's P-A-S-T to contact.
P-A-T-H-S.
Path. Oh, got it.
Yes.
I played too much loud music as a kid, and I got a fan going, so I heard paths to contact, not paths.
Oh. It talks about different CE-5 experiments, including a predecessing. The Nova Scotia group did CE-5 on the beach out in the fog. It was like, I read that and I'm like, oh my gosh. It was just, because it's like if you're sitting on the beach in the fog here, it's like being dunked in snow. It's cold, even in the summertime. And there's no way to get warm because everything gets wet in about 10 seconds. But anyway, oh man, I lost.
That's the contact.
Past the contact. So some people became afraid, like the first time they had that experience. So what I've done, one of my goals was to have a CE-5 that was more focused on communication. So you just sit down and you have a set of questions. You pick one at random. You don't look at it. This is called conscious mind exclusion. It's a very important thing in the system that I put together. And then you do scrying and channeling.
What is scrying, by the way?
Oh, scrying. Scrying is like where you take a crystal or a bowl of water, and you're looking for visuals. Visual images.
Like reading tea leaves, kind of.
Yes.
Oh, I've done that once.
Yeah.
Never again.
Never again.
Never again.
Why?
Because I was a stupid kid and I said, okay, let's go ahead and do this. We can see God, but no, let's see the devil. And I connected to something deep and evil, and I could see it and it could see me. And I took that teacup, I put it down and I pushed it away from me. And I'm like, no.
Oh my goodness.
I have limitless abilities in some areas, and we're only limited by the things that we think that we cannot do. And if you can think that you can do it and you can get there, yeah. Not a good experience. No, it wasn't. It was very scary. It was very dark. It was very foreboding. Just the face, but more importantly, the eyes. But then when the eyes were looking back, it was just too real and everything else. And, come on, I'm 8 years old.
How old?
Yeah.
I was eight. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But scrying has a spectrum. There's internal scrying, which is like using your imagination.
Yeah.
And that's where we start out with, because that's most natural to us. And then looking for base images and flashes of insight using like a rice mix or tarot cards or whatever. And then finally going into there and then looking for flash images in the crystal.
Just to bring about tarot cards, my great aunt, my grandmother's sister was a nun, but she still did tarot cards. She had her special deck within a black velvet bag that she would bring out for telling the future.
Yeah.
Catholic nun, but from Bohemia, so there's a long line of it.
Bohemians, yeah.
I don't do the like when I do that kind of thing. It's not like this card means this and this card means that. We're looking for images and flashes of insight that come from looking at the images.
Gotcha.
That you can. It doesn't matter which cards you draw in the deck. You can see those. You'll have those flashes, and they'll relate to the hidden target in some way. So, and then I go into like, you know, as we increase contact, we increase the depth of what you're doing, and I find that people have a lot more success. It's a good experience because it's a very low key experience to start with. You're just sitting there with, with paper and pencil, and that's it, and your imagination.
A lot like remote viewing.
It is. Well, I take now. I'm trained in CRV. I'm trained to an advanced level. I work with applied precognition for a while, in their volunteer groups, and I basically took what they have in CRV plus my own material plus some of the stuff that I was reading in Nostradamus, because I think Nostradamus worked in a way that most people didn't really realize. He works very quickly, because like you see the quatrains, I don't think he wrote in code. I disagree with that, and I'll tell you why. Because the way that he wrote stuff is the same way that I scry things. It's just identical. Like when I scry, I could write it in quatrains just like that, and it would come out very similar to what he did. I think like the words that he saw, like Mabus and Hister, I think that's exactly what he saw. He's just writing down what he saw as he saw it. So that's kind of how I teach it.
What was that, Jules, again? I'm sorry.
Oh, I said, I bet she's right. I imagine that is just how it happens, because that's really about how it comes. Everything comes as a mishmash that you really don't understand until after you get validation.
Right, exactly. And so, I mean, like the validation part, that's a remote influencing me, that practice, because I think that's a very important practice. So I incorporated that. Oh my gosh. Oh, Penetration. That is a cool book. That's like one of the best books in the world ever written.
I've never read Penetration before.
You got to read Penetration.
It's great, Thomas. You have to
Don't read it before bed.
That is
sounds like an experience in its own, but
down anyway.
Yeah. Wow.
I had really I had a moon target one time. It came up very similar to what Ingo Swann came up with. It was kind of creepy, but I think it was displaced to the past. I don't think it was in the present. I think I had some I had some time variance, and I think I was going back in the past.
Yeah. Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
If you do that a lot, remote viewing.
You talk. I'll be right back.
Do you find that your time in this reality slips some, that you can't really tell? Because I cannot tell if 5 minutes passes or 5 hours sometimes. Really, quite often. I am rotten with time passing. I can't gauge it. And I was wondering if that was a side effect of going off into the ether so much.
Oh, I have a poor sense of passing time to begin with. I tend to do that anyways. So I don't find that remote viewing changes that any. I think I'm already whacked out that way.
Yeah, well, I imagine I probably was before I started too. But when you come to think of it,
I have to tell you a story related to penetration. And it doesn't sound like much, but I was like, I was like hoping I was curious about like, oh, he met this woman in the grocery store and it was an alien. And I was like, wonder what that
I
would
love
be
that
like.
part.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, I was driving home from town, our town of a grocery store and a couple stoplights. And
Yeah.
I was driving home, and I stopped at the stop sign or stoplight, and as the light turned green, I distinctly heard somebody say, "Get going." And I looked up in my rearview mirror, and what I saw there was not human. It was,
oh my.
I remember her wearing sunglasses, but I don't know if there were sunglasses or not. Coming to think about it, it was, and her skin was kind of covered up. She was wearing like it was hot. It was summertime, and she's all covered up. And I'm like, oh,
this isn't right at all.
They drive Ford SUVs.
Oh my goodness.
So
did you get out of there really quick?
So anyways, I started, there's no place to go. Okay. So we started driving. And then by the time I was looking in the rearview mirror, we'd passed the intersection. So we got up to the next intersection, charged to the right, and got out of there just as fast as she could. I mean, she floored it out of there. And I'm like, I just was like, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But
to
look at it, it was like there's no, it didn't look like anything, And it's an alien getting testy at a stoplight, telling me to get going.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, when you deal with stuff like that, you have to laugh at it. You have to deal with it, because otherwise you're just dealing with stuff in a way that just rips you apart versus making you laugh.
Well, I wasn't expecting my first encounter on Earth like that to be somebody telling me to get my ass moving at a stoplight.
No.
That's hilarious. Sorry, I missed it. I need to fire the bartender because, well,
he was late.
Well, he's up playing games right now, and I have to make my own. So, usually I haven't been drinking that much, but since my mom has been going through the last things, it's like, well, you know what? It's never a good excuse to drink, but sometimes it just takes the edge off and makes going through some of these different things a bit more easier.
You aren't going anywhere. Don't worry about it.
Oh, no, not at all. But what I can do is say, and I can say this now without getting upset or anything. Let me go ahead and where's this at? Design, banner, ticker.
Are we going to
overlays? Again? No, not again. This show is brought to you in the memory of Virginia Fessler, rest her soul. She passed yesterday on July 31st, 2021. Well, as everybody knows on this show, I was saying that something big is going to happen in July, and I thought it was ET things because I said August, and it's like, no, July. And are you sure it's not August? July. It's like, okay, something big is going to happen in July, and it wasn't the ETs coming, it was my mom passing on. So we love you, Mom. I feel you all the time. It's great that you've gotten out of the pain, everything you're in, but we love her just as much. So I had bring her out. Whoops, wrong show. There we go. I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller, bring it down again. There we go.
That was very nice.
Yeah. I have to do it. And plus I can do layout and 2D stuff and everything. And if I can take her picture and put some stuff around that, I actually have to take that photo and Photoshop out that what is there? There's a Christmas stocking and some of the red and green plaid in the background because they want to use that photo for the for her obituary and for the funeral home, but they didn't want the Christmas theme.
Yeah.
I understand.
Well, Jenny, you have a couple of books, and don't you have one coming out really soon?
I have one coming out
Ooh.
next. Actually, it's going to be August 8th is the release date. It's called The Art of Scrying. It's The Art of Scrying and Dowsing. It's my second book. My first book was called Spiritual Alchemy.
Yeah. And believe it or not, at the top of the chat right over here by me is a link to Jenny's books over on Amazon. So go ahead. If you're interested in some of Jenny's stuff, click on that link. It'll pop and open in a new window so you don't forget about it, and check it out after the stream.
Yes. And then there'll be a book coming out. I just got the release date this week. It'll be August 22nd of 2022, and it's called The Art of Channeling. And actually, The Art of Channeling, both the scrying book and The Art of Channeling will stand alone. So you don't have to get both of them. It's not a sequel in the sense that you have to read one in order to understand the other. Both of them stand by themselves. And The Art of Channeling is more of the communications with spirits. It's communication with ETs. I go into specific protocols on, as to how I teach it, how I do it myself, and I put in a couple of case studies. Hello. How did you open that, Brad? You opened. My cat just opened the door. No, he opens doors.
Oh, they're little geniuses. Yeah, they're little geniuses. If they want in, they'll get in. I know how it is.
Oh.
I do have a question for you really quick. Any thoughts on Edgar Casey?
Edgar Casey. Actually, in the channeling book, I did a case study. I channeled Edgar Casey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he's
not in David Wilcox like everyone thinks.
No, he's not. No.
Edgar Casey.
It is my belief that Edgar Casey and Edward Kelly from the 16th century are the same person. I don't know if that's true. I don't, but I think that's very possible. My channeling seems to lean that direction. Again, this is free channeling. I've had some battle. Huh?
I don't know Edward Kelly.
Edward Kelly was a famous psychic. Was a psychic for a 16th century astrologer. They were trying to find the secrets of alchemy by talking to angels. Now, I don't think it was angels. I don't think they were angels at all. I think they were ETs. And I'll tell you why that is. Okay. If you look on the tables now, Edward Kelly.
Is someone knocking? Because I'm hearing knocking, and hopefully it's just not noise we're hearing of some spirit knocking in the background.
I don't hear any knocking, but my hearing's not the greatest. So
okay.
Nothing here.
I just heard knocking. Seriously, I heard knocking when you guys were talking about this.
Edward, if
talking about Edgar, the other guy, because I heard knocking.
Eddie, if that's knock again.
Kelly.
Anyway, he was a very gifted psychic, who worked with and they used all these magical tables. This is a famous occult system actually, and these tables are supposedly for contacting angels. But when I scried this, and when I went into an astral projection into this area, I was following his tracks basically. What it looked to me like was a star chart. This is how, and it looked like this is how the ETs find their way from one system to another. They don't go through physical space. They can't use physical space. It's impossible. It's deadly. They have to go through that in-between place, that nexus. And this seemed to be a map of that. So
a map.
Really cool.
A map. It looked like the navigation maps that I saw. But I don't know. I mean, I have no way to validate this again. This is just a possibility.
But this is where you can get the stuff, draw it, whatever it is, get it out there and share it and get it more connected.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing that are you on Twitter, Jenny?
I am.
Yeah.
I am on Twitter.
We need to get you on UFO Twitter. I've seen you on there, but talking about your stuff and different things. I mean, it's such a great community for taking and sharing this kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take a look. I was kind of shy because there's some people that are very aggressive there.
Yeah,
Seems like.
work with Jules myself if you want to call Lynda, who probably is the one who reached out to you in the beginning to get.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like,
she's phenomenal. She's
yes, she
dealt with
is.
some vicious people on there. Other people have dealt with some vicious people on there. Hey, even me, I just got freaking called a flying piece of shit the other day. Whoops, I said the S word by Witness Citizen. Please unsubscribe, everybody. Yeah, there's just some people out there, even when they're having a bad day, and you try to say things to them to be nice and different stuff to help them pull out of it, man, they will just go ahead and just like kind of, like you're freaking cat fight. And it's
You're gonna scare to death. I generally try to be a loving soul, and there are very few people who get me.
I know.
So don't be so
I know. I was trying to take someone who was just going through a bad day and saying, hey, you got 1 down thumb or 2 down thumbs on your video. Look how many freaking views you got, man. You had Lou Elizondo come on your channel. Forget about that. Go ahead and look at the positive side and how good the things are. I mean, I've been doing content for over 30 years. I started doing stuff on the Atari Lynx, Sega Game Gears, Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, all the old stuff. And I came in with a lot of the old guards of the industry. But I was going through it, unlike what's going on now, where like today Sean Reich was going and talking just talking down the old people in ufology and saying they need to step down and get the hell out of the way because there's a newer crowd there. But these are the people you have to take and value and understand, because they're only going to be here for so much longer, and they've done so far to get us where they are now. Why do you want to just take someone and shove them out because they're a little older?
Yeah.
Sorry for going on a little tirade. It was just something that.
Yes.
I also have a small YouTube channel, and the main purpose, I don't have like it's not a social media type of thing.
Yeah.
But it's not social. What I do is I put up demonstrations of the techniques that I talk about in the books.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to like help clarify some of the more, so people can see exactly what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, and make it easier. I'm hoping that the material in the book will be easier to learn.
Yeah.
If
I wanted to feature your book or feature some of the little pieces out of your video, could I go ahead and do that and put that up on my channel to try to promote you?
Yes, that's fine.
Of course, give you links back to you because you deserve it, though. But if you've got stuff that we can go ahead and cover, that'd be freaking phenomenal.
Oh, that would be so wonderful. I would really appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, any way we can connect us between us and more people on YouTube. It's all about collaboration and learning, and that's why if you can help get you more involved in Twitter and some of the different stuff to a degree, it can be a positive experience. But what I found is there's so many people like us in collaboration in different areas. Yes. It's like my co-hosts that I have on Twitter on this show, Jules and Lynda, were both people that I had been, working with on Twitter for a long period of time. And it's like, these are some unsung heroes that deserve a voice and deserve a platform to talk about their stuff. And that's why we have the name that came up with Inviting the Phenomena. I'm giving all credit to Jules right below me because, yes, she did come up with that name and it was freaking killer. But my other person on my other co-host that I have 2 co-hosts on my other show, which is UAP Disclosure Tonight, and that's Rob Heatherly. Rob, if you're out there, great seeing you. Hope everything's going all right for you. And just the knowledge he has and what he brings out is just phenomenal. And Greg O'Brien, who brings a lot more into the channel and discussions and everything, and how he brings it in from just a different perspective. When you have that meeting of minds on it, and I would, it just gives you that, the combination you need. And I wouldn't have had, or any of these people that I've been dealing with, even Ted Rowe, who we had on last night, who's from the National Aviation Reporting Center for Anomalous Phenomena. And he's meeting with the AIAA in a couple of days to go ahead and talk about the importance of ufology and UFOs and unidentified phenomena with, the top people who are in the aviation astronautics, field. There's so many people from so many different parts of life, from so many different professions. It's truly an amazing place. And I only use Twitter for dealing with this, if you want to call that on a professional level. Granted, I have a profession beyond this, but in my life of dealing with consciousness and ET and CE-5 and ancient history and all these things, and of course ancient aliens, because it's always aliens. I wouldn't have been able to connect with so many people if it wasn't for Twitter. And that's what I'm just trying to, to use me as an example, at least for you, to see if this is something we can find. And it's nothing you have to put a lot of time into. And I'm sure you're already doing this, so I may be talking. Yeah.
I mean, this is my passion. So
yeah,
of course,
can you tell? For Julie too.
I mean, this is very important to me. The books I wrote. I mean, I did this so that we can disseminate information about how to communicate, about how to find out information, and we don't have to rely on a government that either doesn't know very much or isn't willing to share it.
That one.
Amen.
And
yeah,
I mean, I don't know how much they know. I'm not there. But I suspect that they've tried to back engineer things, and because they don't have the focus on consciousness,
bingo.
They don't understand.
Right. When you come up to a panel and there's no controls there, no knobs to turn, and everything is going from your connection up in here, they're going to be like, how do we get this to work, Fred?
They think it's also push button technology, and it's not push button. It's not. You can't. You have to. And on top of it, the way that you work on this. Now, you know how the CE-5 thing is coordinated thought sequencing, right? We're all working together. Okay.
Right.
Okay. This coordinated thought sequencing is the start of how to use this technology.
I got a quick comment here. The ack says, everyone on this channel brings something amazing to every show. And all are kind of the kindest, most knowledgeable people ever. It's always a pleasure to hear your guys and gals' thoughts on things. So this is just one of our viewers who's just coming back and saying how much they appreciate not just me and Julie, but also you for coming out here, Jenny.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that.
There you go.
How does he do that? That's I can't. I could do a cackle. I can't do it right now because my voice is starting to go. There. Oh, that's good. Did you? I think that maybe, like, as far as the disclosure is concerned, I think our litmus test is actually the artifacts on Mars, because if they acknowledge artifacts on Mars, then basically NASA is going to have to shut down their rover program because of the ethics.
So screwed.
That's our litmus.
Yeah.
If they admit it in the light of something that's going to cost them a lot of money, then I know that they're being honest with us. And that didn't happen in June. And I was like, no, this isn't. No. I felt so bad for some of these younger ufologists. They were so hopeful. I was like, oh man, Roswell, 1997 or whatever it was?
1947?
No. The disclosure on Roswell.
Oh yeah.
Remember that? Do you remember that
event?
Yeah,
it was in the 90s.
And it was so heartbreaking. I was so depressed over it.
20 years, something big comes around.
Well, they're doing it once a generation. It's like every 20 years or so. Give people a chance to forget about it, and then they'll go and do the whole thing over again. I think they're fishing for information.
I wonder why.
Well, they're casting for information.
Yeah, they're fishing.
That's an intelligence. That's an intelligence tactic.
Yeah. Oh, quick thing. Ted Rowe, who was on last night, when he first started working with Dr. Richard Hines, who was in NASA and other areas in the past, the first thing he gave Rich when they started working together was the manual from the KGB, and to understand the levels of disinformation and the other kind of things that were coming across. And listening to Ted and different things that he had gone through really opened my ears. And I was, he was, before anyone else was calling out disinformation, misinformation on UFO Twitter about what's going on with this, Ted was already there, because he was there alongside of Lou Elizondo when Lou came around, and before that he was there with Stanton Friedman.
Yeah,
all right,
with him. Yeah.
Stanton Friedman's was lived in the province next to about
Nova Scotia,
6
right?
hours. He's about 6 hours from us here.
Was he in Nova Scotia?
No, he was in New Brunswick, but that's like the distance between. It's about the distance between Chicago and Indianapolis.
Nice. Yeah.
Not far, like
No.
4 hours, right?
Maybe a little bit further, about 5 hours. It depends on
5,
traffic.
yeah.
When you go into New Brunswick,
Okay.
they're all driving 90 miles an hour. So
Well, I knew a Barry Friedman.
Yeah,
And he always talked about his brother Stan. And Barry died before I ever figured out if it actually was a relative of his. But the more I hear of it, the more the conversations, the involvement in the government, that everything was going on. Could be. But
that
Stanton
shouldn't
was
be
a
too hard
phenomenal
to figure out.
Yeah, Stanton was a phenomenal person. The information that he had, the knowledge that he had, the insight. I mean, just open it up and it's like a freaking book of where we're really at.
yeah. But anyways, like going back, I mean, I'm trying to provide an alternative source of information, so we don't have to. I mean, if the government tells us stuff, that's great. If they don't, well, you know.
If they don't, they talk about it anyway.
Yeah.
They're not very good at keeping secrets. Yeah.
No, thank God.
But we have an alternative way of working with information. We have an alternative way of working directly with the ETs to get the information. We can get very specific information, regarding the technology. We have access to everything. They can't hide it. Even if they wanted to hide it from us, they can't. This information, once it's in the Nexus, it's there. Anybody can access it. You can't, there's no forbidden information. I don't believe that there's a psychic police going around. If you want to do something unethical with it, you can do that. I don't recommend it, but it's possible and nothing's going to stop you that I know of. If your vibration is low, or if you're like you had the experience with the tea leaves, that might be your experience if you try to do something that's not a good thing, and your conscience is going to bother you about it.
Yeah. Oh, that was just an 8-year-old. I'm 53 at this point, and I'm well beyond that ability. Granted, I don't do out of body as much as I did as when I did back then, because back then it was like every single night I take myself down to level, bring it there, go ahead, leave the body, and just. But the coolest thing is when I would leave the body, I initially go through that first door. I would always go through this area of all these shadows, if you want to call it, of people.
Yeah.
And it felt like family. I felt like I was at a family reunion. And all the different people had on different kinds of hats, different outfits. And I'd kind of, like as a little kid, just kind of going back and forth through them to get to the other side of this big open, if you want to call it, banquet hall of different people that I was going through. But what I have a feeling is all those people that I was actually going through were all my prior existences of my consciousness that I had been. And it wasn't just family like relatives, but it was actually part of my consciousness I was traveling through to get to where I was going to. So that lack of fear, that feeling of safety, like there was nothing, I shouldn't be afraid of anything. And just kind of like when you're a kid going through a wedding reception and there's a lot of people in a crowd or a family reunion, you never feel that kind of a fear or that you don't belong. You feel like it's a part that you should be at.
Yes. I don't go through an area like when I do the astral projection. Mine is just it's basically like that tunnel vision thing that we're talking about. The mantis eats humans. Oh my!
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to put that on there. I was going to go ahead and put that. Yeah, that's another thing that's another story for another thing. Yeah, they got a civilization in stasis, and they need food to bring them out, but that's another show.
Can we eat them?
Please be in the show.
Oh yeah, Dr. Thomas here has seen things good and bad, whether I like it or not.
Well, I was reading Preston Dennett. Preston Dennett's a very good UFO author. I really enjoy reading his work. He's very readable. and does a good job with it. It sounds like the mantis experience with the mantis has been fairly good. They seem to be a fairly friendly, or at least that one group is. I don't think that I don't think there's a lot of homogeneity between species. I mean, even within a numerous species like the Norix, the human, or the hybrid human, I don't think there's a lot of consistency there. It's just they have very diverse cultures, and they have all kinds of reasons to be here.
Yeah,
it's more of a thing like, when I work on scrying this and stuff, it's like, where do I start?
Yeah,
there's just so much. I mean, it's a whole universe. There's billions of life forms.
Yeah,
it's just like,
start what's here, and whenever I'm dealing with what's here, I keep on hooking up with this gang of guys that flying around in UFOs in really tight outfits, and it's kind of like, they're here, they're doing what they're going to do. It's like, yeah, they invented the trend of spandex and tight clothes, so got to give it to them. But you know what the thing is with the Greys, people never talk about the women Greys. It's always just the guys. So it's,
I don't know, when I communicated with them, they didn't seem, the gender thing didn't seem to be human.
No, it's not human, but there was a bunch of guys, and they all had this collective consciousness, but behind the scenes, there's a woman running the show, which sounds familiar.
Like a queen bee.
Well, it's kind of like a queen bee, but it's more of, imagine all of their collective consciousnesses that are on this particular level of consciousness, and the sum of all of the different consciousness has an intelligence that's on its own. It's not artificial, but it's a consciousness-based intelligence.
Yeah. It's complex.
Very.
They're hard, and they're hard. I find the Greys very hard to relate to, because they do things very, very differently than what human beings do.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, we have some Greys that seem to be okay, and then we have this bunch of we have pirates basically, and they're after genetic material. I guess they're selling it somewhere. I don't know what they're doing with it, but they seem to be intent on collecting as much genetic material as they possibly can. And
if they've been involved with our human species going back for hundreds of thousands of years to a degree, and this is part of their job, they're grabbing material, different things, in case something happens, they can fix the planet and restart it if they need to.
Yeah, but you're assuming that human beings are just on one planet. I don't think that's the case. I think they're colonizing other planets with humans. At least that's the take I got on it. Their behavior indicates this. See, you get a lot of genetic material. You got a lot of hybrid slaves. Now, the baby presentation, for example, this is a presentation of a hostage. It seems like, because they're not really interacting with the baby. They know that that's their child there. So they're not going to be aggressive towards somebody who has their child. There's an attachment that's going to form there, even in those brief moments. It seems to me that that's piracy, but I could be wrong. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm not hanging my hat on it.
Yeah.
But the actions appear to be the same as somebody who's exploiting the genetic material that they're finding. For some reason, it's valuable. It has value to whomever, or that they're interested in colonizing other planets.
Yeah.
And they're colonizing them with human hybrids, or humans that have been somehow genetically altered. I don't think it just relates to this planet. I think they're relating to hundreds, if not more, planets.
If I could just go ahead, we have Wimshurst Machine. Welcome to the channel. Glad you could make it. If you could go ahead and hit the subscribe, really appreciate it. I'm going to make you a mod right now, I promise. But she's saying that we study ants because they're fascinating, but we can't communicate with them. Even with our superior intelligence and technology, we're not even trying. But perhaps the gap isn't between us and them. Right. And that's where we have this layer of consciousness that we've got going that's there to help us get to that next spot. That is that layer of consciousness that you're talking about, Jenny, right? That's what ants don't have, is we have that ability to communicate between the species.
I'm getting some kind of dinging sound and I'm having trouble hearing you.
Me too.
Dinging?
Like
oh, well,
phone
I know.
ringing.
Here. There we go. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Sorry
Yeah,
about that,
could
everyone.
you
That
please
was,
repeat?
I declined a
It's-
phone from here, but it was my phone ringing from someone else trying to find out what's going on with my mom. So, yeah. Wow. That's already
Could
passed.
you repeat what you said? I
Shh.
could not hear you over the sound that was making. Okay, we're talking about ants and that we're not able to communicate with them. But we are. I mean, the system, like I said, the way that you communicate is through like images, but they're not going to have the same kind of images that we do.
Right.
We may be able to and just not realize what we're doing.
That makes absolute sense. And the thing is, what your whole part, your books and everything are about using the consciousness and the abilities we have as humans that are probably part earthling, part something else, to be able to make that branch and be able to make that communication that can go between the places.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you another story. When I was writing the channeling book, the editor asked me to put in some more case studies. And I can usually get case study going pretty quickly and everything. So she wanted me to do the animal spirits, a couple animal spirits, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll give it a try. I haven't really done a lot of experiments with animals and using the community. So I said I'll do ravens because we've got ravens all over the place around here, and I really like the ravens. They're
they're the next smartest being on this planet besides humans.
I believe that.
Yeah,
I believe that.
I have a good raven story for you.
I took my camera and I picked 4 different places. I went around the neighborhood and everything, took 4 different photographs, and so I picked one out, set it aside, and sure enough, when I channeled that, it was just amazing, the information I got. I was like the cars. They were scared of the cars because it was like enclosed and they don't like the idea. They're terrified of the idea of having something over their head, like a solid, like being in a box or something like that. Very terrifying to them. They like the path around the lake. Now, it turned out to be Dalem Lake, which is a little park that's fairly close to here. It's a great big lake. Or it's not a big lake. It's a lake with a pathway around. It's a popular swimming hole for us. And the ravens like to go on the path because people drop food on the path. Now, when I asked them to describe a location, I didn't know which location. I was doing this with a blind target, right? So I didn't know which one it was. I didn't know what I was supposed to be channeling on. I had several different locations, and I was, I was totally blind to it. But when I looked at the information afterwards, I was like, I really communicated with the raven. It was just such a shock because I wasn't even really sure that it would come out to be anything,
Oh yeah. They'll be yelling at me out when I got the window open and telling, "Hey, I'm around. Where's my peanuts?"
Well, they talk too. They get kind of a creepy voice.
Oh, Jules, tell us about that crow that could talk to you.
Oh,
okay. That relates to my crow story.
Okay.
When I was a little girl, like 1st, 2nd grade, there was a crow that showed up in our neighborhood that would come and land on me. And it was a giant, big black crow. I didn't know what else to call it. We don't know where it came from, but it would say, "Hi, I'm Mike." I mean, it talked. So that's all it would say was, "Hi, I'm Mike." But this crow came and visited me for a year, really, and followed me to school one day and landed on me in the playground and everything. He was a really cool crow. And I never found out where he came from.
Wow. And they live a long time too. I mean, or they
Yeah.
The raven, the matriarch, when we came here, what made this house kind of stand out is that as we came in here, the flock of ravens had landed and were looking at us, and we looked at them, and it was like we knew this was the right place for us to live. So we feed them when we watch them grow, many years of litters. Yes.
I'm just asking for subscriptions and people to go ahead. Hey, if you're new to the broadcast, we're talking with Jenny right now, a phenomenal person who has got some great consciousness skills for dealing with the other side of ufology. So I'm just asking for, hey, if you're new here, you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and click that button. We appreciate it. And sorry if I'm interrupting you when I'm doing this, Jenny.
That's okay. I was getting kind of rambly. Anyway.
Act.
As the night goes
next
on,
up.
as the night goes on,
Yeah.
I start to ramble.
Well, you aren't alone in that. We tend to ramble on sometimes too.
Yeah. So let me put the glasses from hell on. So how do you describe your found intuitive methods that are used for gaining information about ETIs, which is extraterrestrial intelligence, right?
Yes. Well, we're going to talk about like some of the characteristics. Okay, first thing I do from remote viewing, we do blind target exclusively. I always do conscious exclusion. The way that you process sensory information will overwhelm anything coming in through your spirit. So that's the first thing I do is I get rid of that interference. So I always focus on a specific target or question, and I do so by basically having a list of at least 4 questions. I draw one at random, set it in a box, set it aside, do my session, whether it's scrying, whether it's dowsing, whether it's channeling, whether it's astral projection. I'm doing deep channeling, deep trance channeling, anything like that. It's always focused on a question. It's always focused on an entity, and I practice hiding the target. After you do your session, then it's revealed. That's the first characteristic. The second characteristic that I do is I start with low key. This is for solitary work. Now in CRV and ARV, generally you have like one person setting the target, one person analyzing, one person doing the remote viewing. In this, I have refined the system so that it's easy for a solitary practitioner to do by themselves. It's quick to learn. It takes about an hour of learning time if you're average reading speed. And you build on from there. It's like you can learn the basic technique in a couple of hours. And it's very easy to do. It's very easy to memorize. You can use it anywhere. So I build up and I go and build intensity slowly. I don't start out with a very intense experience. I don't just, it's something that everybody can do. You don't have to be a special psychic. You don't have to be a special chosen one to channel. You don't have to be a natural dowser to douse. There's techniques that I present that anybody can do regardless of talent. Okay. And then the next, let's see what here. Okay. Then the feedback. When I have a beginner set a target, I try to have, especially with like UFOs, try to have some component that a photograph, a picture, a witness statement, base it on something that you can hang your hat on so that you know that you're on track and so that you're doing some reality checking while, on your work afterwards. And you can expect like about a 60 to 70% accuracy with the work, with somebody who's gone through like 3 or 4 sessions and understands how to use the technique. And then the final part, the feedback. And this is presented in the scrying book. It's not presented in the channeling book because of the, I felt like it didn't work as well with the channeling as it did with the scrying. I do a quantum time loop to improve your accuracy. And how this works, it's called the Lighthouse Ritual. Basically what you do is you finish your session and you look and see in detail, is this perception there? Yes, no, it is not. No, it is not there. I don't know if it's there or not. And go through each perception by perception. And then you take a statement and roll it up like a statement that summarizes everything, that represents that session and the information in the feedback session. And you roll that up in a piece of paper, and you burn that piece of paper after the session, and you blow that information back to the past. Then when you start your next session, you open up and you receive that information from the future. Do your session, finish it, blow the information to the past, start the session, receive it from the future. Are you following me?
Yeah.
That part's a little bit confusing. What it does is that it improves your accuracy by creating a quantum time loop. You are traveling past to future, future to past, past to future. You're creating a timeline as you go through that looping, making each loop go further and further towards having that accurate session. And that is a very important part of that system because it works. When I did that, I was in the ARV, and I mean, these are hardcore targets. These are financial targets. These are gaming targets. It's hit or miss, no way to cheat. And I started doing this, and my accuracy average was about 65 to 70%. It waffled between 65 and 70%. When I started doing this, after 3 months, it went up to 95% for like a month. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the difference it made. So I incorporated that into the system. And the channeling, we start with the paper and pen session, same thing, and just gradually build up the intensity, trance channeling, and then I go into settings. And the setting information was based on the Philip experiment. It was an experiment in Toronto on physical mediumship. And basically what they found in the Philip experiment is that having a setting like a CE-5, like you're sitting out there meditating outside, like doing the sky watch, okay? The setting has a lot to do with how the session goes with the intensity. With increasing the intensity, you're dropping down into trance and you're immersing yourself in the whole concept of what you're doing.
Wow, that is
And
did I overload?
No. A lot of our people come to this channel and they appreciate the details and the specifics that you're getting into, because a lot of channels beyond here don't really get into that. And that's something that our audience really appreciates.
And I have case studies
first
going.
time I've ever get so deep about it.
One more time, Jules, you kind of broke up there.
I said that's the first time I've ever heard anybody with a theory that ran so deep into it. I thought it was very nice. Glad you shared it with us.
Yeah. You know, that's just amazing. You know, I have to ask the question is, what are some of your unique aspects in dealing with the intuitive tools you've got?
Well, I was talking the aspects. What do you mean?
Some of your unique aspects of your intuitive tools.
Well, like like in scrying, for example. Now, scrying is traditionally done here. I'll show you my screen. This is my fishbowl.
Oh, nice.
I fill it with water.
Right.
And then I look for images in there. Okay.
Do you look at it from the side or from the top?
From the side. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I like to scry from the side. I don't like going down into the top. It doesn't work very well for me that way.
Yeah, because it can be really difficult to climb out of there. Trust me, I know.
So I look for shapes and stuff like that in there. To start out with, you're not looking for like big visions or anything. You're just looking for flashes and shapes, colors, lines, movement, very basic things. And this is different from usually, because usually scrying is taught by what I call the prayer and stare method. And this is how I initially learned scrying. The prayer and stare method is important for manifestation, materialization. But for doing divination, for doing scrying, it's not as effective. But what you're doing here is I do flash scrying, which means that you look at it and write down what you see within 3 seconds. I use it's more than that. It's like 5 seconds. So it's like a flash here, then write, flash here, then write. And that's different because most people stare at something until they see something, until they fall into a trance. That's the usual way of teaching that art. And I found that that was not as accurate as doing it with the working very quickly. You remember in CRV where they said, like, if you think about a perception more than 3 seconds, then you're going into analytic overlay, AOL. Okay.
Have you heard about that, Julie?
Yeah.
Put down your pen. Yes, I do.
Yeah. It's the same sort of principle with scrying. You're going to get into that. You're going to get into conscious mind interference. You're going to get into interpretation. You're going to get into frustration because you're looking for something that isn't subtle. You need to look for something subtle, and you need to focus on the subtle because that's where the information is. Now, you get a stronger connection with that subtlety than as you practice. But at first, it's not going to be, you're not going to see a movie in there necessarily. And even if you do, you still have to look for the subtle. You still have to compare it to reality. The second thing is, as I do a progression with tarot cards and with like like the casting bones and the tea leaf type stuff.
Yeah.
I do that as kind of an intermediate step, because not everybody can look at a clear object and see and recognize what they're seeing. Scrying isn't so much that you can't see, it's a matter of learning what to look for. The same thing with clairaudience. Have you ever listened to like a furnace? When the furnace starts up, then you sort of hear voices in the furnace? Or in a fan, when you're listening to a fan?
I haven't gone down that path. No.
Okay.
See, a lot of my stuff all comes through, and I've learned it through the vibrational experience that I get, where I get this pattern that hits my body all over, and it just comes in this kind of this electric feeling that consumes my body. And then I know at that point that I've got someone who's here, who I've connected with. It's like they kind of come to in a beacon. But
yeah. Okay. Well, like if you listen to a furnace or fan or a motor running, sometimes you'll hear something that sounds like a faint voice in it. And what I find is if I go deeper into that, then I'll start hearing words.
Gotcha. So so what you're saying is it's looking for those little clues and white noise that our body is potentially hearing, and some people may have an attunement to being able to pick out different things. And if you just kind of don't just look and focus on it, but just kind of look at the big picture of everything and focus on it to a degree with your mind, not necessarily your eyes, then you start picking up more details into it.
Yeah.
Wow.
We have a natural pareidolia. And basically what this is training that natural tendency to work for us instead of against us. And, I've heard a lot of people say, well, in scrying, well, it's just pareidolia, but pareidolia is an important part of that. It's our recognition. It's our pattern recognition that is trained to cue in on the deeper aspects of the mind. That's part of the connection.
And it's not just the mind, but it's consciousness. And,
right.
And that's the biggest thing we've got to understand, that there's something more here than just this physical thing between my hands that I'm squeezing underneath the physical part. There's a connection we have to this whole kind of a huge more universe, whatever you want to call it, out there that's beyond just the visual and the audio levels.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, you're such a cool person, Jenny, honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can come play with us anytime.
Oh yeah.
I really enjoyed this. This is the first interview that I did for this book for this particular book release. So it's like, I got stage fright today.
The way we like to have this is like friends hanging out, having a conversation. Jules, myself, I wish Lynda was here, but it's just we're just talking and hearing about your stories and hearing stuff about you, which kind of involved into your book. But it's about getting to know you as a person and what the kind of stuff that you do. And I love the detail that you're getting into. It's just amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, we thank you for sharing.
I was going to talk about, let's see what else I was going to talk about. I'm just looking at my list here.
Yeah. So I think the next one is describe your perspective on disclosure, coming back into a different world.
Um,
Unless you want to stay off in the other one, that's fine with us.
yeah, I don't put the importance on disclosure, on government-based disclosure that many ufologists do. Now, I've been through this whole thing. I've been around for a very long time, and we've been talking about disclosure for as long as I can remember. And that's, we're going back 40 years here. And
Yeah.
And I think that that the government doesn't have an understanding, a good understanding. It's like they're barking up the wrong tree. They're still shooting at these things. Talk about Darwin Award. Oh my gosh, you're shooting at something that you don't understand. But they don't understand why their bullets don't penetrate that machine. All they have to do is just reflexively think, and they're not in this dimension anymore. They just can literally drop out. And there may be a shadow there, but all they have to do is just go out of phase a little bit.
Just think about this. How many more thousands, if not millions, and more advanced they are with us with tech? Let's call thousands of years advanced, if not tens of thousands or millions of years advanced beyond us in technology. But think about the level of consciousness that they've evolved beyond where we're at. It's just unimaginable.
Yeah, it is. But I don't necessarily think that they have to be that much more advanced, because in learning the principles of how they jump from one solar system to another, first off, they don't all do it the same way, but usually what it involves is it's a consciousness thing. It's consciousness based. It's going through that nexus. They're not going through space, and the military apparently doesn't understand that, because, like I said, they're still taking pot shots at these guys. They're wasting a lot of ammunition.
Yeah. But it's the wrong kind of people. But there have been things going on in 2014, 2019. The Navy's kind of gotten the idea because, well, they're over the oceans, and gee, go figure. They're seeing a lot of these things going around. At least they have the common sense not to engage.
Right, exactly. And it's not just the Navy. People on the ground have tried to shoot them too. Yeah. The first thing we do, we like to make things blow up. We have a real fondness for that. Our rockets. We have rockets. We're going into space in a tin can with a bomb underneath it. This isn't rocket technology. But now that relates to my theory about disclosure, is that if they don't really have that understanding, and they're still chasing these things like that, which indicates a lack of understanding, I think that means they probably don't have a whole lot back engineered stuff that's really all that valuable. They may have retrieved some crash. They may have retrieved some bodies, but I don't think they've really learned that much, because they're not looking in the right place. They don't understand the basis of the technology. Dog that is foul smelling, go lay down. Go on, out of here.
Dog, what are you feeding that dog?
Crawled up your ass and died.
Yeah. I avoid some of the chicken jerkies for that same reason.
Oh, I'm sorry. You guys want to see him here? He's kind of fun.
Yeah,
you probably hurt his feelings.
Oh, cute pit bull,
heart.
Yeah, he's a good
pretty
boy.
dog.
He is.
How old?
He's 11 years old.
Yeah,
he's starting to get some health problems. So
I got a 17-year-old sleeping here under the pillow next to me. So
yeah, he and the cat are only like a couple months apart. We bought them as youngsters, and the cat came in first, and then the dog. The cat, when we bought the dog in, the cat didn't hiss at him or anything. He came up to him and then swiped him right across the face. First thing when the dog hit the ground. He just came up, not a word from the cat, just came up and went whomp right across. So that poor puppy was just scared to death. The cat's
That's
nickname.
what I can do.
The cat's nickname is Spawn. That was my daughter's nickname, and there's, he's Siamese, so he's got his ways, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like Pinky in the Brain type of a relationship going on here.
Mine get along pretty good for the most part. But the cats will let them know right off when they're young. You got to tell them when they're young that you can't do anything to me.
Yeah. No, he doesn't get away with anything with me, but he sure would like to. Oh, we got off track, didn't we?
Oh, that's okay.
A little bit, but animals, that's fine.
So anyway, going to disclosure, I just think that we're better off. I think we're better off just like telling the government, okay, you guys told us, we're going to forget about you now. We're going to leave you guys in the dust with this, because we can find out the information we want on our own, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's going to be the way it is. Now, what I think is going to happen is that, they don't like being left in the dust back there. They don't like that very much. So once they see that we're getting the information and that it's interesting, I think they'll catch up to us eventually. And then we'll start, being able to work together a little bit more. Now, one thing that Thresley's told me. Now, Thresley's one of the inhabitants of Luminous. That was. Oh God, I sound like a wacko. But anyways, one of my channeling experiences, he said, his culture was very much like Earth. He says they were tribal, and they still live in small villages, and they were fighting all the time. He says, but once they found out about this and about how interstellar travel really works, because he said a lot of people died. He says a lot of his people died trying to fly into space. Now, he said the sun where he is not as stable as our sun. So he said the radiation killed many, many people as they got as they started to go into space. It was very dangerous, a much more dangerous environment for them. He said after they started to learn how to use their consciousness to explore, and that they found out that, if we work together, then we can start to bring stuff back. We can do the same thing. We can bring stuff back. We can send stuff over. They learn to work together, and then that interest in exploration made people work together, and they stopped fighting.
Yeah,
that's what happened. He was telling me about the history. But I mean, if we find something interesting, but we have to work together to get it, and it's really interesting, like going out in space and exploring, because I mean, there's nothing that'll get humans working together better.
Yeah, but they have to get past the idea of it's not just you get in a rocket and propel it and go from here to there like we do in current. It's much different than where they're at. And maybe when they start getting that picture, and then when they start, how many people are going to die when they go over to Mars because the radiation will create the damage to the body and the brain and the different things that humans can't live beyond Earth in a physical realm, but in a consciousness realm, there's so much more that's out there besides, just what we have here. And it's not about that point A to B in a physical sense, but in the consciousness sense.
Have you ever read the book? I don't know.
No.
It was a Cliff Simak. Time is the simplest thing.
I haven't read that. No, have not been exposed
it's
to it.
An old book. This is the 1950s.
I was ADD as a kid in most of my adulthood, so if I would read books, I would not even remember a lot of them at this point.
This is a science fiction book, but if you read this book, it talks about this. It talks about how consciousness was used when to go to another planet, and how they were bringing things back. And I think that's the key. And I think that's why we were shown. That's why we were channeled the CE-5 contact protocol, like the coherent thought sequencing, where everybody's thinking the same thing at the same time. If everybody astral projects in the same way at the same time, I believe, and this is just a theory, I believe if we develop that ability, we can not only astrally project, I believe we can probably bring something back. And it's been done. I mean, I know there's a lot of fraud,
Yeah,
but I mean, in
but that's
physical
not-
mediumship, I think it's been done
Yeah.
with mediumship groups. But
Did you
think
have
there's
something to say on that, Julie, really quick?
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that they've been doing that forever. I mean, it's in the Bible where two or more gather, I will be with you.
Right.
It's the same kind of protocol,
Yeah.
They may channel it to different people over time, over and over, to try to make people learn it, because not many people do learn it. But
Yes.
all the faiths that I've ever studied have a version of this, and it means the same thing when you get right down to it.
Yeah. If you read, see if I've got the book. Where did I put it?
Oh, you don't have any books around you, so.
Well,
I love libraries.
Now, I know a lot of people might have some objections to this, and I want you to set those objections aside, because I want to read something to you, and this is the Lemageddon. Okay, this is the Key of Solomon. Okay, and the author to this is unknown, and this is the second part of the Key of Solomon, called the Theurgia Goetia. And these are airish spirits. These are like fairy.
Yes.
And it talks about how to call them and what they can do. Let's see here. Okay. The offices of these spirits is all one. For what one can do, the other can do the same. They can shew and discover all things that are hid and done in the world. They can fetch and carry and do anything that is to be done in any of the elements. Okay, and so on. Now, I don't think this guy would have written that if he hadn't had some experience with it. So this was written in probably in the 16th to 17th century. So we've been doing this. Now there's some, it's not the same as the UFOs. It's the idea of spirits carrying, but it's still going through that same process. So I think that is, now you guys are
What?
Oh no. I think that's the same process, that
The double split stuff?
the transporting of stuff using spirit. Okay?
Yeah.
I think that's how it's done, and they're working together with it. So if disclosure's not looking at that from that angle, then they're missing the boat entirely, because I think all of their technology is focused on that. And especially if there's other human beings that do this, because I know human beings are going to really focus on exploration. Yeah. Look at how much money we spend on space exploration, just shooting up some rich dude up in the, up a little higher than what the planes fly.
Well, that was actually Richard Branson from whatever his company is, the rich guy from the United Kingdom. And we had the other really rich guy from the United States, Jeff Bezos, going up and launching people up to a degree. But the stuff with SpaceX is doing, they're actually handling the Artemis mission to the moon for putting landers up there. And also they were just picked as the provider for the, a mission to one of the moons of Saturn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Cool.
But it is cool. But look how interested we are in exploration. And if we had something if we had a way of going to another solar system, can you imagine how people, and we have something concrete. And it's my hope that, like with these books, that this will start to go that direction.
I think we'll get another giant tidal wave that they'll summon force to come over our planet before it gets to that point, because they don't want us to get there, because we are too violent of a freaking race.
Well, nobody can stop us from doing that. I mean, you can't stop a person.
Oh
from
yeah,
actually-
they can. They've done it time and time in the past. They've sent things in that hit the planet, or the planet goes through its regular,
well, yeah.
or the planet and the sun goes through its regular cycle that's every 12,500 years or 25,000 years on the big cycle like we are right now, where you get the double whammy. And our what do you call it? Our magnetic poles are already in transition. And when all that stuff comes together, there's a big change to the planets because we're going through the general galactic magnetic sheet where you've got kind of this layer that's there. If you got Sagittarius, say, in the center is our black hole, and then you've got this magnetic sheet that comes out there every 12,500 years as we're going around the galaxy. We transition down through that sheet and up through that sheet. And when we go make the transition going through it and coming back, there's usually a change in ages, if you want to call it, for the planet. It's been going on for a long period of time. And I hate to say it, we're at that point where it's not just a 12,500, but it's the 25,000 year cycle where the sun every so often kind of goes and sheds its shell like a magnetic, like a skin, like a snake kind of shedding its skin. And that kind of goes out there and goes to our planet and puts us through a point of rebirth in the planet where we have this whole rebirth. But we, as humans, we don't retain those memories going for a period of time. And if you take all the knowledge we have today and take away all our technology and all of our books and all of our iPhones and all that stuff, how long would it take for all of our knowledge to be gone?
I don't know.
Generation or two.
Yeah. But on the other hand, I have hope for that because, like, if what I channeled is true, and there are other human civilizations that have done this, that means that there's a lot of hope for us if that's the case.
Of course, yeah. There's hope for that to a degree, but it's just us understanding we've been here a long time, but we only have this small view of everything that could have happened because every so often, at least we're in our star system, something that goes on that when we get up to a certain point, there's just a reset that happens and go with it. And I think that's one of the things that the ETs are so concerned with all of our stuff with nuclear, because right now there's over 200 reactors that are on the coast of all of our major waters, of our major oceans and lakes and stuff. And if we get the stuff that goes on and the oceans rise up and stuff goes on and hits all the coastlines, we have Fukushima, but in an uncontrolled manner. We have continents full of reactors that are going to be in the same way, and it's just going to, hurt that rebirth cycle.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I have hope. I have hope that there's a good chance that we could do, that we could actually make it this time. I think we've been through this before.
Many times. And I think there's some part of the humanity, whatever you want to call it, that may have figured it out before it happens. And I know we're talking about trying to get off planet and get onto Mars and stuff, or going to the moon. But the real part is get to the bottom of the oceans. That's where the ETs are. And there's a reason it's safe. Yeah. And if you can establish yourself in a civilization down there, when the oceans rise up and stuff goes on, you're already safe because you're on the bottom of the oceans. It's kind of like the story of the three little pigs, the pig who makes the house of sticks, the house of wood, or the house of bricks. For us, the house of bricks, bottom of the ocean.
It's the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
But the reactors, if they broke apart, I mean, that radiation would probably threaten their operations in the ocean. So I can understand, but I mean, we're also not using that stuff. Like, I mean, the reactors for power, we need some other source. I mean, the thing is, like, I mean, solar energy, for example, you come up here now, we have 6 months of less than 12 hours of daylight a day. Yeah. We can't use solar power.
It's an on again, off again thing. You need something that's persistent. And the one thing that's cool is a lot of the UFOs and UAPs that are out there are all exhibiting the energy signature and way they're doing stuff of a black hole, because there's gravitational lensing that's going around the craft, which means that they're dealing with space and time and gravity on a level of a black hole, because we're seeing the same visual effect of it as that the Hubble Space Telescope gets as it's focusing, way out there deep in space. Mm-hmm. So, and Cheryl Costa was here a couple weeks ago. She had talked about what was it? The UAPs that we're seeing, majority of them are always seen when the Milky Way galaxy, which has in a direct line of view, if you want to call it, to Sagittarius 1A, the black hole. So is there a tie between these craft exhibiting these powers and the ability to have Sagittarius 1A? But even if it did, that's still 12 hours on, 12 hours off, and it's a SETI power source that they're dealing with.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing. I think the power source like that would have to be, it's something that we're missing. It's something that's right in front of us, because almost all the time, all the big discoveries are just like that. It's something that's like right there.
Right.
Just like the scrying thing. I mean, the ability to do it, the key to making it more accurate was right there in front of me the whole time. It just took I just had to put the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? And what comes into it, it's everybody's ability to see the perspective and to share things and to see things in a different way. And that's why I love you coming on so much today, as you have such an in-depth view of something. And I figured if we could talk about some of these different things, it's just about openings everyone's perspective to the possibility of where we could be, which can then advance our dialogue or different things to try and understand it. Because whether I like it or not, I'm here for a bigger reason. There's other things that went on. They took me away when I was 5, probably many times until I was at least 8. And there was something about me, and there was something that I have to do now with regards to, and part of it is connecting with people like you, connecting with people like Jules, and trying to bring that perspective that's here, because the more people we can collaborate, the more we can talk about it, the more we're all going to learn.
Yeah. And, I feel like my purpose is to try and engineer techniques, consciousness techniques that are a little bit easier to learn, are a little bit better, a little bit easier to learn, just making those little bitty improvements as I go. I learn something.
This is something that's been in my mind all night. Your book names and your books are great. Take the book title and just make it like Consciousness for Dummies. So it's something for everybody. Anybody can think they can pick up and they're going to get it and go through it. Not to go ahead and discount your work, but just to make more people, this is something, your techniques and the way you're describing it is something that anybody can go ahead and attain. And that's what I've seen out of it.
I
That's the next.
I don't get I contribute to the title, but the publisher decides the title of of books.
I'm just looking at it from a perspective of let's get everybody and let's bring everybody into it.
Yes.
Because the techniques, how you describe it and how you bring people into it, that's the way that people need to be able to understand what are the small things, what are the small preparations I need to do to get to that point. It's like with Jules, when you were learning remote viewing, there was a step to get your mind to that particular state and to how to read things in.
Yes.
Yes, pretty much.
Where did you learn remote viewing? What was your?
Dr. Simeon Hine. Are you familiar with him?
Yes.
He taught me.
Yeah.
I went to one of his seminars and everything. I'm the mod on his website, actually.
I like him. I've talked to. He's done a couple. Yeah, he's a really cool guy. I really like him.
And now that we can actually interview men, now that we're in August, moving forward towards the end of the year, we could actually bring Simeon on here. Isn't that true, Jules?
Yes, that's true. I'm going to have to find out when he's available.
Absolutely. That would be wonderful.
I love it.
Yeah. I met Jules on Simeon Hine's YouTube channel before I met her on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So we all love Sim.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, he's very likable. He's a very likable person. I really enjoyed listening to him. But I got, what do you think about, kind of discuss some of the more difficult aspects of ufology. What do you think about like Dr. Jacobs and Bud Hopkins type of about their work? How do you feel about that? I'm just kind of curious because I've never really sat down and talked to anybody about
Jules?
No.
Well, you want to know Thomas's view? I mean, that you're
Just the guy who has ADD and can't remember anything. Well, I can remember a lot of the good technical things, but other kinds of stuff with some of the older stuff on ufology, Jules is probably a bit more advanced than I am in that.
all right. I feel that they did some excellent work. I think that they have valid points. It's not my experience, but I am friends with people that have had negative experience, and I believe them. You know, I think that there's more than, I think there's more than one faction of the phenomenon, and that not everyone is dealing with the same people. And I don't think that they're wrong. I think that there is a faction that is as they describe of the phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're wrong at all. But like I said, it's just not my experience.
I actually met Dr. Jacobs when I was in MUFON. He did a talk. He's a gifted speaker, but I found him. I didn't know what to think. My take on hypnotherapy. I'm not sure that it's a really the best tool. Well, no, I'm not sure it's the best tool for the job of trying to recall something. I worked for a time with family services, and they were not allowed to use hypnotic recall in court, at least not in Indiana at that time. And this was we're talking the early 90s, late 80s. It was early in my career. So, and back then they said, no, this is not a valid tool. That's why I was just kind of thinking about it. But I mean, I can't see them as being entirely wrong.
Right. No, I agree. I think hypnotherapy is a valuable tool, and it all depends on the hands of the hypnotherapist. Yeah. You know, whether it's a valid session or not. And that makes it, hard to use as absolute proof, because there is such fallibility, but I know a lot of people who remember things without the hypnotherapy, and I have to think that they know what they're talking about.
No,
for me, if I could really jump in here really quick, me, the remembrance came back was I would do something. I'd have a specific kind of lighting, specific kind of a situation where you've got that visual tie-in to what you had in that memory, and all of a sudden, poof, that small chunk of what took place comes back, and all of a sudden you have that brief period of time where you've got this memory part of an experience that's there, and then over time you get more and more of these, or more of this overall thing that you've dealt with gets unlocked, and then you can, not until really some of the end pieces come together do you really realize the order of what you were seeing or why.
I think some of the memory problems that people have are because the craft jumps into the nexus when they take somebody. They jump into the nexus. Now, what happens when you dream and when you astral project when you come back? You forget a lot. Okay, I think it's the same mechanism. Your mind is trained to forget what happens in there, and you have to retrain your mind to remember.
For me, I kind of see it as I've got this access point that all my memories go through to get to it. And this is where the memory is. But what happens is if you want to try and directly access it, it's blocked and it rotates out of the way, so you never get to the actual memory that's there. And they've actually found that our memory actually goes and rotates in a full circular structure to be able to go ahead and maintain stuff and make sure it's not going to be able to, to maintain over a long period of time. So if you've got something that's there, but it's just kind of, going through it, you're getting these brief moments that aren't coming from our usual way of access, but it's more of an association that brings you and gets you access to a particular memory. And sometimes if you can find the things that happen close or in relation to it, you can jump to that point and be able to get to that particular chunk that's there. And it's just something that's there and it's with us and it's locked away, but our ability to directly access it, that's what's blocked. And it's figuring out how can you recognize it, understand it. And, you know, what do they call those things? An old Chinese puzzle box?
Mm-hmm.
Something like a puzzle box to a degree, where you just have to find the right combinations of ways to get to those things that are still with you, that in the part that you want to unlock. Now, you can get the stuff with, you know, deep hypnosis and everything else, but the thing is, everything that comes out from where the person took you and brought you through it is all going to be with you when you walk away from it, versus finding the pieces that you want to go ahead and unlock. I mean, I have a lot of stuff unlocked. I understand where I was. I don't remember being on the table and having the lights and having two aliens down near my feet and one off to the side and being in so much pain, and I'm crying and I want to go home. And I remember the one being next to me. I'm not sure if he was like, he almost touched me on the side of my head, and poof, I was in another place from that. But the other stuff that was going on, besides seeing him wearing black spandex and seeing the aliens and the color of their skin and everything at that point, I don't want to know what happened before that. And the thing is, I'm willing to leave it in the past. I've got a lot of good, what do you want to call it? The overall feeling of euphoria they put through your body, that's still with me almost every single day. Every time I want to think about it, I'm there and I can just re-feel it. But the stuff that was strong enough and bad enough that put me in enough pain to break through it, leave it. It's a memory. It's behind me. I'll take the small little bits that I have now and be able to take that and be able to, you know, look at it in more of a positive aspect versus something that I don't understand or know why, because I don't have the full context.
So, oh my gosh.
The dog hit you again?
No, he's like one. He wants. We in the evening we go upstairs and we watch a movie together. You know, we get on. Everybody gets on the bed. The dog, the cat, me, and Donald. We sit on the bed and we have this movie. And I haven't done that tonight. So guess who thinks that they have to?
Well, I hear the squeaking toy, and it sounds like it's up to your
that's what I
right side, and it's kind of off to my side over here. And
he's bringing me toys. He's trying to convince me, saying, "Hey, that's we're missing something here."
Oh, it's all right.
Yeah,
but okay. Now going back,
they're not humans, but they're Earthlings too, and we get it.
yeah.
So do you think now the thing I was thinking about is Das Smith in doing some remote viewing experiments believed that he uncovered what's called telepathic overlay. And what that is that the person who is tasking influences people through telepathy for the remote viewing sessions, and it creates an accuracy. So I'm kind of wondering, like, if we're running into the if the hypnotherapy sessions, if you're running into the same sort of thing, maybe there's some sort of telepathic overlay going on. There might be a way around that.
Yeah, I don't know what the way around that would be, though, except for not having a therapist doing self-hypnosis.
But you know who's someone who was a different kind of hypnotherapist, whose techniques you may want to look into, is Dolores Cannon. Because when Dolores was going from person to person to person and bringing them into a different trance and different thought, she was kept on running into the same entity over multiple people, which was amazing.
That's internal validation, and that's a really good way of validating something like that.
It's like they were aware of her when she went from one person to the next, and what they were talking about continued.
Yeah.
I mean, if you haven't listened to some of Dolores' stuff, I got into her about 2.5 years ago. It was just freaking amazing.
I'll have to take a look. I haven't really looked into her stuff very much.
Oh God, it's worth it. Watch some of her descriptions of Summer's sessions and different things on YouTube. They're out there. I think it's from her estate particularly, but it's
Ozark Mountain Publishing.
Yeah.
It's what it is. Ozark Mountain Publishing. They put out great videos and interviews and things.
Yeah. And our techniques are still being taught today and everything, but it's, I guess when you're talking about bringing people down into that state and hypnotizing them, it comes into the person and the technique they're using. Definitely.
Yeah. I wonder if that should be taken into consideration, though. Maybe even like conscious mind exclusion, like the therapist doesn't know what questions he's supposed to be looking for. Might be a technique to kind of reduce that overlay.
Yeah, I hear you. Because we come in, whether we like it or not, we come in with a bias.
Right,
whether
exactly.
That's a conscious or subconscious bias, and someone may have additional baggage along with them that they're not necessarily trying to leverage, but they are.
Yeah, and it would be simple. It would be a simple step. It would be a very simple step that could possibly improve that aspect of ufology. I've been thinking about that, but this isn't something that's in the book, so it's just something that I was thinking up off the top of my head.
Hey,
and
it's
again,
collaborating. I'm glad you're bringing it out.
It's nice to be able to have a conversation like this with another ufologist. I live in the back end. I mean, I haven't been able to leave the island in a couple of years, and because of this COVID, and certainly don't get out to the to conferences or anything else like that, because it's just so that we lost our airport here. It was one of the casualties. So it is now a 300-mile drive to the nearest airport.
What happened? There were too many UFOs?
No, they just shut down because of COVID.
Oh, gotcha. And there was no use and everything, and there was not enough travel going through it. So from a financial aspect, we're going to go ahead and shut you down.
Yeah, and it isolated the whole northern, northeastern.
Well, it made it safer.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't particularly want to catch it or have to deal with people who have it. It's a bad disease.
Oh, I know.
But Nova Scotia's gone to it's been fairly extreme in their lockdowns and everything like that. But I don't know. I think in retrospect we'll have to look at it, see what worked, see what didn't work.
Yeah. We'll
do better. We learn from our mistakes. It's just kind of hard going through it, right? While you're going through it.
Oh, absolutely. I hear where you're coming from completely.
I try to give them the benefit of the doubt, and as a nurse, I don't, I find it rather frightening.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're almost. Go ahead, Julie.
I was just agreeing with her that we all find it pretty frightening. I'm in Alabama. It's one of the worst places you could be for that right now.
Yeah.
Oh, I have no immune system up in Washington State, so I can't go. I haven't been able to go in public for what now is it? Year and a half?
Yeah, it's
been a damn long time.
It's been a damn long time. And it's not out of choice. I love going out, having a good time, going to the bars, dancing, having a fun time, and everything else. I can't even go to Costco right now. I can't go to the grocery store. I can't go to the hardware store to get paint that I need for the side of the house. So it's just a matter of getting the people that I can get to go there. But then again, it's like if you send out your significant other to the store to get the stuff you need, now you're still exposing yourself because, I don't have an immune system.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll get past it all in the whole thing. Absolutely.
There will become a point in time when this will be behind us. There will be a point in time when epidemics do not last forever.
No, never. But on that note, Jenny, I want to thank you for coming out.
I thank you for having me.
It's been a great show here tonight, and I think I can actually
keep in touch with us. Watch the show. He has call-in shows all the time. If you'll be able to keep with the little community and not feel so isolated out there.
Definitely reach out over Twitter. Go ahead, let's connect over Twitter and see where we can go from there. And just think this is an introduction and opening to our audience and to us as well.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, just as a quick reminder to everybody, over at the top of the chat, right over there next to Julie, we're going ahead and presenting. We've got a link to Jenny's books over on Amazon. So whether you're watching this live or you're watching a replay, go ahead and click those links. We'd appreciate it. Every additional book sold helps her out, but it also helps, more importantly, spread the way and the methods that she's learned and the different things. And it's like, am I actually seeing it? Well, you know what, Darren, welcome to the chat. I actually got to pause the music here. We actually got a new viewer in. So Darren, before you leave, before we end this chat, we wanted to go ahead and say thank you for coming to the chat. Thank you for coming to the show. Please, I've added you as a moderator. We need every subscription. We're trying to hit 1,000. Things have slowed down dramatically. We're like freaking 358 to go. So if you could please click that subscribe button right below me, man, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you much. And on that note, I will go ahead and get the chat going again, and now get my end. Well, I bought a song. It was $50. I got like 8 loops of it. Best money I ever bought. But I want to thank Bob Gray for coming out. Banana Bowie. Ack, ack, ack. Ack. Ack, ack. Ack, ack. Thanks for coming out. We appreciate it. Banana Bowie, Bob Gray, Who's Duncan. We saw Alien Girl 111, but she's had a stream going for a while, so she's not here anymore. Let's see who's here. Jim Chambers, thanks for coming out. A bunch of the guys were here. Now we had some of the ladies, but I don't think my chat goes far that back. Yeah, Lynda was here earlier. Thanks for coming out, Lynda. Appreciate everyone for coming out. I thank the additional browsers I have open on this other computer over here. No, I'm just joking here. So just want to thank everybody for coming out, watching this broadcast, and having a good time. We really appreciate you. Jenny, thanks for coming. You're an unbelievable source for information, and we love the introduction.
Thank you very much.
Please come and join us in other videos.
That, or even join us on Twitter. We're looking forward to the conversation. On that note, let's say goodbye, everybody. Thanks, everybody. See ya. Bye, everybody.